Next, an update from Gaza, where Israel continues to act forcefully against the terrorist organization Hamas, including over the Shavuot period. Our armed forces have attacked dozens of terrorist targets in Gaza from the air. Israel has expanded its ground maneuvers, eliminating terrorists, destroying weapons depots, and additional terrorist infrastructure both above and below ground. Next, allow me to address the incident that happened earlier today, this morning, Tuesday, as crowds moved along designated routes towards a humanitarian aid distribution point in northern Gaza. Our soldiers identified several individuals who were deviating from the approved access route. Now, this occurred approximately half a kilometre from the aid distribution site. Now, our troops diligently issued warning shots. And as some of the suspects continued, despite these warning shots, advancing towards the troops in a threatening manner, further fire was directed near these specific individuals. Now, the IDF is very much aware of reports. The IDF is very much aware of reports of casualties and is reviewing the incident. But let me make a couple of points very clear. Firstly, the IDF is doing everything in its power to allow Gazans to get to the humanitarian aid. The IDF is not preventing the arrival of Gazans at humanitarian aid sites. Indeed, we are encouraging it. The warning shots were fired away from the aid distribution point in response to the threat perceived by the IDF troops. We've said many times already that the IDF has been facilitating the independent operation of this American NGO, the GHF, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, precisely to ensure that aid reaches civilians and not Hamas. We're cutting that lifeline to Hamas, the terrorist organization, which steals the aid and uses revenue, which it obscenely charges Gazans to get that aid, which they should get for free, and uses that revenue to pay for more terrorists. Let's be clear. Israel is not preventing Gazans from accessing humanitarian aid, and the IDF did not fire at civilians in or near aid distribution zones. Now, from the incident on Sunday, the IDF's initial investigation confirms that serious accusations made on Sunday in so much of the media, they were based on Hamas propaganda. The IDF has already proved them, has put out materials proving them to be false and baseless. Now, we say this respectfully to colleagues in the media. We urge the media, do not amplify Hamas disinformation. Verify before reporting. The IDF operates in full accordance with international law, taking every single precaution to avoid civilian harm, even while under threat. And our forces on the ground will continue to defend themselves and facilitate aid delivery to civilians, to Gazans, and not to Hamas. Lastly, before we go into your questions, to Boulder, Colorado, the Prime Minister and the entire state of Israel pray for the full recovery of the wounded in this vicious terror attack that took place in Boulder, Colorado. Israel trusts the American authorities will prosecute the cold-blooded perpetrator to the fullest extent of the law, and will do everything possible to prevent future attacks against innocent civilians. It's very clear by now. These are anti-Semitic attacks, and they're happening around the world. And we are also very clear, and we know that they are a direct result of the blood libels against the Jewish state and its people, and this must be stopped. Hamas invent lies. The media, unfortunately, repeat them. And the result is Jews attacked, murdered, or with Molotov cocktails thrown at them. Okay, that's the end of our briefing here today. I will now take your questions. Please put your questions in the chat together with your news outlet, and we'll take some of these questions. First question here is a question about Saudi foreign minister and other foreign ministers who were planning a visit to Ramallah. Thank you for that question, Carrie Khan. That's a question from Carrie Khan at NPR. regarding the Saudi foreign minister and other Arab foreign ministers who were planning a visit to Ramallah. Carrie, can I direct you to the foreign ministry who made a statement about that over the last few days, and they can give you the latest from Israel on that issue. Okay, there's no other questions here. Thank you for joining us here today. We'll have another briefing again shortly. We're available for interview or for any questions in the meantime. There's another question here. Question here from Julia Frankel at AP. Regarding the Palestinians that media reported were killed on Sunday and Monday and today while trying to access aid in Gaza in similar circumstances each time, according to witnesses we've spoken to and doctors who've treated casualties, why have we seen this happen repeatedly? What are the coordination plans with the GHF and the IDF in terms of routes people can go down to avoid such incidences in the future? Do the IDF and GHF coordinate to this effect? Thank you for that question, Julia Frankel from ABC. I think I've addressed all of those issues quite specifically in my briefings, but I just want to reiterate a couple of points about why media reporting of this is so important, is so very important, because it is clear that Hamas are trying their hardest to keep their own people, Gazans, away from the GHF distribution sites. They are trying their hardest. Why? Because that is their last hold on power. That is the way which we lift the hand of Hamas off the neck of ordinary Gazans, is by cutting them out of the aid process and getting it directly to them so that Palestinian families are given food to eat. Not in bags of flour, but in boxes individually for each family with food for a week, and to allow them to get the sustenance which they deserve, getting it out of Hamas's hands. Now, we've seen over many incidences, media, via Hamas unfortunately, giving false and fictitious accounts of what's been going on. I can give you a number of examples from the top of my head. October 17th, 2023, media giants like the BBC and the New York Times ran headlines saying that Israel had bombed the Al-Ali hospital and killed 500 people. Days later, it was proven it was a rocket misfired by Islamic Jihad, not the IDF, that caused the explosion. But by then, of course, the damage was done. Hamas had lied. The media, unfortunately, parroted, and Israel was blamed. And that incident was timed specifically to prevent the visit of President Joe Biden to come to Israel, because it happened on the eve of that actual visit. It was designed to stop President Biden visiting this country by creating this international outrage. But this has been Hamas's design. I'll give you another example. In May, just this year, the BBC reported that 14,000 babies in Gaza would die within 48 hours. That claim was from a UN official. Of course, it was false. Now, the BBC later admitted it was misleading, but by then, Hamas had its propaganda victory. Just on Sunday, just a few days ago, on June 1st, Hamas claimed Israel had killed 31 people at an aid site in Rafah. The New York Times and others ran with it. Then we've released an Israeli drone footage showing that Hamas gunmen opened fire on the crowd. Now, did the media lead with that correction? No. The damage has been done, unfortunately. Or in March 2024, I can give you loads of these examples. Al Jazeera aired a woman claiming that the IDF soldiers had raped and murdered women at the Al-Shifa hospital. She later admitted she'd made it all up. Al Jazeera quietly deleted the video, but the lie went global. On November 15th, 2023, a BBC anchor falsely claimed that Israel was targeting medical teams and Arabic speakers in Gaza. In fact, the IDF brought both to protect civilians. The BBC later apologized, but only again after the falsehood had made the headlines. In February this year, the BBC released a Gaza documentary narrated by the child of a Hamas deputy minister. The BBC went so far as to pay Hamas for the use of that deputy minister's child. BBC money going directly to a terrorist organisation. And of course, after public pressure, the BBC pulled the film. They admitted the mistake, but not before airing this Hamas propaganda on primetime television. So we're asking you, all media, that you have a supreme responsibility. If you routinely claim that Israel is intentionally targeting women and children, but are using the data of Hamas when you know for sure that this data is false, even the BBC has had to walk that narrative back. This isn't journalism. It supports Jew hatred. It is a modern day blood libel. Now, these aren't isolated errors. This is a pattern. Hamas lies, the media amplifies, and Jews are murdered in DC, or they're set alight in Boulder, Colorado. And then maybe there's a correction, maybe there isn't. But by then, unfortunately, Israel's reputation has been torched. This is not just a battle going on the ground where we're fighting Hamas. It's a battle of the narrative, and too many global newsrooms have become foot soldiers for Hamas. Okay, another question here from... question from... Just go up a bit. Yeah, the idea, this is from Akriti Thapar from BBC News. The IDF only puts out drone footage from Sunday, which was from a different location involving the aid convoy, not from the Rafah GHF sites. Is there any evidence the IDF can provide? Akriti Thapar from BBC News, that's not a accusation which we accept. The IDF has provided ample evidence about why, showing this was Hamas gunmen themselves firing on their own people. Why? Because once again, the aid is their last vestige of power. Supplying food to hungry Gazans is the last vestige of power. But the entirety of the new operation is to separate Hamas from aid distribution, to allow the food to go to the needy and the hungry who deserve it for free, and not to be extorted by Hamas, which then uses the money to pay for more terrorists. Julia Frankel, has the IDF launched formal investigations into these incidents? Thank you for that. I've shared with you our information on that, Julia, and you can ask IDF for anything else. And now we've got here from Phoenix TV in Hong Kong. Until now, any Gaza combatants who fought with security guards in humanitarian aid points, if Gaza Health Ministry offer the information is not true, would Israel offer chance to international media to visit those aid points in the future? Thank you for that question from Phoenix TV in Hong Kong. I haven't got any further information to share with you on that information. Just to say very, very clearly that information that comes out of Gaza is information which is cleared by Hamas. Hamas controls all of the information which comes out of Gaza, which is why we believe that our priority is getting hostages out and not sending journalists in. You know, real journalists have been entering in Gaza with the IDF. Unfortunately, Hamas journalists never leave Gaza. So many have talked about journalists being killed in Gaza. Of course, every incident where there is a real journalist being killed in Gaza is tragic and is certainly not our intention. But Hamas operatives, unfortunately, with press vests are not real journalists. And you just have to look at their social media, which is full of praise for Hamas terrorism, to get that point. Okay, I think last question here I can see is from Carrie Khan. Carrie, just remind me of your news outlet. Just to be clear, you are saying the gunshot victims that we have been reporting on, you are saying that they were all shot by Hamas gunmen and not by the IDF. Again, thank you, Carrie from NPR. No, that wasn't what I said. In the start of this briefing, I gave a comprehensive view of the latest incident. Please take the text I said from that incident, from that text. Okay, my friends, that is all we've got time for today. Thank you for joining us. Meantime, please do stay safe, and we'll see you on the next briefing. Thank you. Bye-bye.